Hey guys, Michelle from OG Rose. I hope you can hear me. I wanted to do a recording on a concept that I think could be helpful, or maybe a new framing for thinking about both the concept of rest and connection. Daniel and I were talking about rest, and I think sometimes it can be a little confusing what that term means, it can cause confusion between people because it's not really understood what rest fully is. And I don't plan on exhausting the topic in this short recording, because I do think it's a interesting topic, and would be like, I'm curious to just understand what that means for any person who wants to share what that means for them, rest. And that's the thing. I think people have different backgrounds and experiences and understandings of rest. And so it's one, stay curious, understand that people actually define these things differently. And then, when it comes to connection, maybe it's the same thing, probably, right? People have different understandings of the word connection or wanting to connect. And that, for good or for bad, right? Some people may want connection, but feel like every time they try to connect, it's difficult. So then they start to get, maybe jaded about it, understandably. And then there's some people who may have really connected relationships that are really, thriving and just flourishing and make them feel alive. And so they really think connection is a wonderful thing. I think everybody thinks ideally it could be a great thing, right? So yeah, again, stay curious. What does connection mean for different people, given their backgrounds, their experiences, their hopes for what it could be, right? But I was thinking about kind of bringing these concepts together and thinking about kind of an analogy for what it could be to. I guess ultimately I'm thinking about the word connection almost more than rest, but I do want to link them because I remember just scribbling something in my notes app or something maybe 2 years ago about this concept of rest connect, because a lot of times I'll just speak from my own mind and my own mind and heart, that connection or rest for me typically also has to do with connecting to the land around me, the earth, the people around me, connecting with myself, and connecting to God. Like these are things that are restful for me. And it's interesting. That's funny. I didn't think about this before I started recording, but I'm kind of thinking back on some of my recent recordings, like on the online concept. And I'm sure I used this word, even though I wasn't thinking, emphasizing the word. But being connected, this will exhaust the topic, or not exhaust. What I mean by that is it's a little repetitive, but stay with me. Obviously, we use the term connected a lot with the internet, right? And so we kind of have a very clear understanding of what it means to be connected through the internet. But a prior connection that's required for that is electricity, right? And that is the foremost connection that is needed for the internet connection. So, and then there's like the downstream kind of connecting with people. So there's this trickle effect of connection that happens when we think about the internet dynamic. And I think there might be a similar trickle down connection that happens with people, like apart from the internet. I mean, there's people on the internet, but you got what I'm saying, like in real life connections. Maybe it's something like, if I were to just make a quick framework, it's like the connection to God, or like the bigger than you thing, right? The bigger than you being God, then the connection to your self, maybe just because you mediate the former through your own self, and then connection to everybody around you. Now, maybe the second and third could be switched, right? God, then connection to others and connection to self, or something like that. I mean, all of these kind of dance. But I'm just thinking about this trickle down, like what seems to be almost more primary to get fully connected before the other connections can then trickle down, right? Can then smoothly flow through to be, because like literally you could not use Google it or whatever, YouTube or whatever, if you're not first connected to the electricity, or having a battery that has stored electricity, right, for the laptop or device to work. So it's all about energy. And Daniel and I were talking a lot about energy and how important that concept is. And energy, for me, it might be helpful to think about both rest and connection in terms of energy, and really getting clear about what is energizing for us as human beings. And when it comes to, even as I'm talking about this, people probably, it's kind of like the stereotypical idea about, or the tropes of introverts get their energy from being alone, extroverts get their energy from being with people. I think there's something to that, but I don't think that's entirely fully true, or it's not the full picture at least. But yeah, it's helpful to do that. I think most human beings, because we're social creatures, have some need for this concept of rest connect as it relates to connecting with those around us, and really connecting, looking at each other in the face, smiling, listening, paying attention, not rushing to the next thing or not having time for it, or whatever it is, because a lot of times the rush disposition is not always giving a full landing for that connection, like a full plug-in, if you will. I'm just thinking about like a plug into the wall, right? Or like you can go ding, like the light can go on. So yeah, there seems to be something about energy and the increase of energy through a rest connect state that is more energizing, not maybe, and that this is where the concept of rest is just like vegging out, or just binging Netflix or something like this. I want to challenge that as maybe not actually the optimal form of rest connect. And I think most people may, if they're honest with themselves, admit that that's not always, like, yeah, you in a sense, you're low energy state, and you're requiring high energy from the devices and the electricity and the internet to, like, they're doing the high energy thing, you're doing the quote unquote low energy thing, which is understandable. You feel tired, you want to quote unquote recharge. But interestingly enough, your energy, it's not like what energy gain do you get from that. Now, if somebody wants to tell me I actually gain energy from that, okay, cool. I think a lot of it is probably just getting back to equilibrium, right? Where you feel like, okay, I felt like I could take a breath, right? Like I don't have to do anything right now, so I can just breathe. I get that. Maybe that's replenishing the energy. However, it doesn't really, it's difficult to think about how that actually literally increases your energy in the geopeic sense. So I'll bring up the term geopeic that me, Javier, and Thomas Jockin have enjoyed developing together. And with that term, we talk about how you actually have more energy. I think Thomas brought up the idea of having, like, when you're in the geopeic spaces with people, this is the rest connect, where you're literally, like, you're doing things that on the outside maybe don't look entirely restful. I mean, there has to be some level of being able to sit or stand around to talk or enjoy a meal together. So those elements are things that maybe one could think of as rest, but it's not the, vegging on the couch to a show series or scrolling on the phone or something like that, right? It's engagement in the sense of like eyes on eyes, right? Actually talking, and in that geopeic engagement, which I do think could be considered a rest connect, you are more energized. You literally are like, whoa, I'm more energized by this, and are able to find yourself feeling quite awake when you otherwise may have felt sleepy, things like that. Now you do still, I mean, like I mentioned, having the ability to sit or go to sleep or eat like a nourishing meal, those things would still be, in a sense, necessary in order to even have the geopedic. But I'm trying to sort of just rethink a little bit about how we think about rest, how we think about connection. And I think I also was curious to think about this topic because I think personally, I have, maybe it's an unquestioned thing, and that's why I'm trying to question it now and really think through it. But I think of connection as like an ideal, like I desire it. I think connection is helpful. For me, I think about it again, like the plug in the wall, right? Or the, the flame to the wick or something. It's like, it's lighting up. It's lighting me up to be able to have genuine connection. Now, genuine connection is different than bickering, right? Or the frustration of somebody who you're working with in a work context or something, like are you talking to another human being? Yes. Are you connecting? I don't know. It's not this ideal form of the connection that I'm talking about, this sort of rest connect that's recharging to you. You're resting because you're recharging your body, your mind, your soul. And so, yeah, I want to say that in the sense that obviously connection can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and a lot of people can think as soon as I quote unquote connect with another human, there's bickering, or it's an unpleasant thing, or it's even a hurtful thing. So obviously people can connect with each other and it's not positive. Obviously we see this through the internet as well. People can connect and then they're essentially cyberbullying or whatever, they're like not treating each other very nice, or they're getting anxious about correspondence, etc., etc. Like it's not given that just because there's connection, it's working well. But I think that if we get curious about connection, and this concept of rest connect, we could try to do connection in a way that is actually most optimal for those involved, and that is energizing for those involved, so that we go back to like what I think is truly human about us, in a sense, which is that we desire that, we have a longing for that, and we often try to replace it or fill that void, or that you could get into the questions of, can you fill a void? I don't want to go down that, but what I mean to say is you have a hunger for it, so you try to fill it with some connection, and a lot of it is through the electricity, internet connection avenues that then people feel they're trying to get their rest connect through that connection. And is that really connection? I think the more ideal, optimal connection that is recharging is when you're able to like have face-to-face, eye-to-eye, your eyes are on each other's faces and you're looking at one another, talking, engaging. Maybe you're walking. I'm not saying you have to just like stare at each other in the face, but I do think that people connecting in that way, where you're actually looking at one another, laughing, talking, crying, hugging, walking, eating, maybe even doing a task with one another. If you can do that in a way that's connection. Oh, that's right. That's actually another reason why I wanted to do this recording, because I saw somebody say something about like inviting your children into your work. It's actually a way of connection. And it had this, beautiful little video with it, where the children they're, I don't know, and they're between, let's just say 3 and 8 or something. And they've got 3 children, and they have their own version of a saw, right? And their dad's sawing a tree and they're sawing too. And I thought that was, beautiful imagery. And now it made me think about the fact of like how we view work, now if we view work as kind of like just, and I get it, like sometimes there's a lot to do, so it can feel overwhelming, and it can feel like this is a lot of just stuff I have to do. And then the disposition toward it don't feel as energized by doing that work, because the general malaise of like, not malaise, the general atmosphere or sense of overwhelm, and I have so much to do and I feel behind is there. But I do wonder if like we could connect to the value of that work, which can then be energizing. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily be like, just like joy from inside out or something. Like you don't have to be like happy, peppy, just singing praise songs or something to do while you're doing that work. However, I do think how your disposition toward work is going to show up in your children and in the ability for that to be a place of connection potentially. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that yeah, also if it does involve you looking like Joy while you saw wood, great, like cool. Maybe that would be better to be like whistling and being like pleasant about it. What I mean to say is you don't have to be like faking this happiness while you do work, but I do think you should try to find a deep connection and energizing connection, like something energizing about it could be maybe your body's getting tired. That's not quite energizing, but if you're really sawing wood, it's tiring. However, you do it because you see the purpose behind it, right? You're making wood for your wood stove to heat your home or something like this. You're doing it so you can connect with your children or your wife or whoever or your friend, and you do that in that way. That's energizing. So there's both the tug and the pull of it, draining and energizing. But all in all, it's sort of, there's a symbiotic relationship between that, which is a type of connecting. And there's the sweat of it and the kind of this is hard, but there's also the joy of it, of like, we get to do this. And you need, like, if you have to say we get to do this, you probably, the atmosphere might not be quite right. In the sense of like, I'm not trying to judge that, but I'm trying to say that obviously, like, just the words to say, well, because I'm trying to be self-skeptical about myself and admit that sometimes, I'm like, we get to do the dishes, like I try to make it that way in terms of the kids coming along. And I think that it's not necessarily bad. Like, you will have to use language sometimes, but if you're trying to like persuade on the spot, it may not be as well as a persuasion as seeing your own disposition in doing it and being able to connect through the thing in order to convey this energizing connection, rest connect, even in the labors, if that makes any sense. So yes, I think that there's a lot here in terms of fleshing out what rest connect can look like. And I think that there is obviously a reality to energy loss and energy gain in the midst of laboring, working, rest, quote unquote, resting, or doing this kind of rest connect of being able to have conversations that energize you. But yeah, I think there is it would be good for us to again stay curious about the concept of rest and connection, and then also this concept of rest connect, where like the real rest is in this genuine connection, this connection that is, wow, you feel, there's a type of feeling able to do the playful conversation and the presence in that conversation, that it feels very real, and that you're really there and the other person's really there, or the other people are really there. And that's quite a gift that I think we can enjoy and share with others, and just something that I think is quite profoundly important for the human being. So thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.